Let me tell you about a man who learned dozens of languages, disguised himself as a Muslim pilgrim to infiltrate Mecca, mapped places Europeans weren't supposed to see, translated pornography and sacred texts with the same intensity, insulted nearly everyone he worked with, and somehow kept getting funded to do more. This sounds like a fictional character written by someone trying too hard, but he was real. His name was Richard Francis Burton, and he might be one of the most uncomfortable figures of the 19th century. Not because he failed, but because he succeeded while breaking every rule people pretend matters. He didn't discover himself, he didn't bridge cultures in a wholesome way, he didn't even seem to like people that much. What he did instead was disappear into other worlds so completely that his own culture never fully forgave him for that. And the question his life secretly asks is unsettling. What happens when curiosity has no moral brakes? Richard Francis Burton was born in 1821 in England, into a restless family that moved constantly across Europe. From childhood, he absorbed languages the way other kids absorb accents: French, Italian, Latin, then more obscure tongues, dialects, slang. He didn't just learn languages academically, he learned how people actually spoke, how they cursed, lied, prayed, threatened, seduced. That mattered. At Oxford, Burton was brilliant and unbearable. He disrespected authority, broke rules, antagonized superiors, and was eventually expelled. Not for lack of intelligence, but for refusing to behave. The British Empire, paradoxically, became his second chance. Empire rewarded people who could survive hostile environments and bring back information. Burton joined the army, was sent abroad, and quickly realized something. If you wanted to understand a place, you couldn't stay yourself. So he didn't. He dressed differently, spoke differently, lived among people rather than observing them from a distance. He crossed lines most Europeans wouldn't even approach. That made him invaluable and deeply suspicious. Burton lived at the height of the British Empire, when curiosity and domination were tangled together. Europe was obsessed with the Orient, but in a distorted way. Other cultures were exoticized, simplified, controlled from a distance. Scholars studied texts. Officials ruled from compounds. Most explorers never truly integrated. Think of it like this. 19th century exploration was Google Earth, not Street View. High level, sanitized, abstract. Burton refused that. But the system he worked for didn't know what to do with someone who went too far, who blurred boundaries, who stopped performing superiority. He wasn't a clean colonial hero. He didn't spread values. He absorbed contradictions. And that made everyone nervous. The central thing Burton did was radical immersion. He didn't just travel, he became. His most famous stunt was infiltrating Mecca in 1853, a city forbidden to non-Muslims at the time. Getting caught would have meant death. He studied rituals obsessively, memorized prayers, mastered posture, accent, timing. He didn't improvise, he simulated belief. Simple explanation? Burton believed the only way to understand a culture was to live it from the inside, even if that meant lying about who you were. Modern analogy? Imagine undercover journalism. Anthropology, linguistics, and method acting fused into one deeply unhinged career. What he thought, if I erase myself, I'll see the truth. What actually happened? He erased the line between observer and participant and never fully returned. He did this repeatedly. Africa, Arabia, India, languages, customs, sexual norms, religious practices, nothing was off limits, including taboo material. Okay, pause. Because this is where Burton stops being adventurous and starts being disturbing. He didn't just translate epic poetry or travel logs, he translated the Arabian Nights in its most explicit, unfiltered form. He wrote openly about sexuality, prostitution, bodily practices, things Victorian society pretended didn't exist. And he didn't do it to shock. He did it because he believed censorship was lying. That's wild. This man risked his career not for fame, but because he couldn't tolerate sanitized truth. At some point, that stops being bravery and starts being compulsion. Burton's story is interesting because it exposes the limits of curiosity. We like to think learning about others is inherently good. Burton complicates that. He shows that understanding can also be invasive, that immersion can become appropriation, that curiosity without restraint can damage trust. He didn't belong anywhere, not fully British, not accepted by the cultures he studied, not embraced by academia, not trusted by officials. He collected knowledge, but lost community. That trade-off is rarely discussed. You have seen this personality before. The person who learns too much, the researcher who loses empathy in pursuit of accuracy, the traveler who stops being a guest, the intellectual who values truth over harmony. Burton represents a type we still struggle with. Someone whose obsession with understanding overrides social responsibility. We still debate this today in journalism, anthropology, online culture. Where does observation end and violation begin? Burton never answered that question. He lived inside it. What unsettles me about Burton isn't the danger or the disguises. It's the loneliness. He spent his life becoming other people and never seemed fully comfortable being himself. He criticized his own culture relentlessly, but never replaced it with belonging elsewhere. That's the cost of total immersion. This story messes with the idea that knowledge is always liberating. It challenges the belief that exposure leads to empathy. It questions whether total understanding is even possible or desirable. Burton leaves you with a difficult thought. If you strip away identity in the pursuit of truth, what's left to protect you? There's no answer, just tension. Richard Francis Burton didn't explore the world to conquer it. He explored it to dissolve himself inside it. And the reason his story feels unsettling is because curiosity unchecked doesn't lead to wisdom. It leads to disappearance. You didn't expect to think about that, but now you will.